Hello, everyone. Hello. Today is the alumni Q&A. I'm here with Kacey and Jasmine. And I also want to do a quick sound check, make sure everyone can hear me okay, and us. But I'm pretty sure in the chat, if you can't, you will let us know. But Anyway, so today we're just going to be working through questions that were submitted beforehand, and feel free to ask any that come through today. You can ask them in the chat, but there's also an ask a question button. If you ask it in the chat, it could get lost. So I just ask that you do it through the ask a question button. It'll alert me and it'll stay there, and we can make sure your question gets answered. And also just a little bit more housekeeping before I get all excited and do introductions. Just want to let you know this is recorded, so there should be a replay later. And I do encourage you all to ask questions, but again, just through that little ask a question button. And before we get too far into this, I'd love to know where everyone's kind of calling in from, which I see a lot of you have already shared where you're from, which is awesome. But I see Oregon, California, Canada, England, Iowa, Texas, Colorado. I'm in Colorado. I'm actually from Loveland, Colorado. We were actually just talking about this before we went live. Kacey, you want to talk about where you're from, where you're at?
Sure. Yes, I am in Georgia. So if there's anyone else from Georgia, hi. Georgia, the state, not Georgia, the country. I think I'm surprised a lot of times people do get confused. So in the United States, Georgia.
Awesome. What about you, Jasmine?
I am currently living in Austin, Texas. So all my Texans are out there. Hello.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we have a diverse group, from DC, Canada, California, lots and lots of places. So that's awesome. All right. Well, Roane County. Spent some time in Roane County. Awesome. Okay. All right. So I guess let's just go ahead and get started. So let's just do a quick introduction for both of you. So I guess, Kacey, you're kind of in the middle, so I'm going to start with you first there. So just kind of talk about your background, and anything you want to share about your journey with Skill Crush, anything like that. Just kind of share that with us.
Yeah. Oh, that's my dog behind me. So if you see her walking around, don't mind her. Hi, I am Kacey. I prior to starting Skill Crush and breaking into tech and all of that, I was an actor. So I lived in New York City for several years, did live musical theater, traveled the world, did all of that, and it was so much fun. And then COVID came, and of course everything shut down. And it was around that time that I was like, I think it's time for a career change. So I had been thinking about tech for a while. It had always been interesting, but as an actor, it's the complete opposite. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm too busy doing theater. So when I had the time during COVID and unemployed, I was like, this is perfect. So I started at Skill Crush actually 2 years ago this month. It was August 2020 when I first started the Break into Tech program. So I did the Break into Tech and the Get Hired track. And then I got my first job in tech. So now I've been in that role for about a year, and I love it. I work from home, so it's very different than what I was doing before, where I literally traveled the world for theater, and now I can just stay at home and travel wherever I want to, whenever I want to. So yeah, I think that's a briefest of overviews of my journey.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. Jasmine, what about you?
All right. So hi, everyone. My name is Jasmine. Okay, I'm trying to do a short version of myself. So I am an Army veteran. I have been all over the world. I'm originally from Long Beach, California. Once I completed my service, I moved to San Diego, California. and I was working in human resources, I decided to leave San Diego, California, and move here to Austin, Texas. And then that's when COVID happened. And I'm like, okay, what the heck am I going to do with my life? So therefore, I was watching a YouTube video, and some people were talking about graphic design. So I was like, what is graphic design? So I decided to Google, and that's when Skill Crush popped up. And I was like, oh, what is this? So I looked at the free coding camp, and I was like super hooked. So that's how I started getting into the tech. But before that, there was like a little program for veterans about getting veterans into tech. So I was like, oh, let me try this out. Maybe I'll, really enjoy it. But it was nothing but JavaScript from the beginning all the way to the end. And I was like dying a little deaf because I was like, I have no idea what are you talking about. And then it's like how they were teaching everything. It was kind of really monotone. So I was just like, I don't like tech. I hate it. I'm not gonna do it. But then when I saw Skill Crush and I like how they're teaching skill, their style is, I was like, I'm totally hooked. So that is my little story, the short version of it.
I gotcha. And can you talk a little briefly about what you do right now, like company you work for, stuff like that?
Yes. So I work for I try to say it from the get-go. It's like a real long title, so I'll just go ahead and shorten it up. It's like an environmental agency here for the state of Texas. I am a web administrator. So I'm also kind of like a web manager. Any kind of broken links or any pages I need to code, that's what I would do. And basically, I kind of work with HTML, CSS, a little bit of JavaScript, and a little bit of Python.
Cool. Okay, and I totally forgot to follow up with Kacey after she gave us her awesome introduction. Kacey, what do you do now? I would love to know a little bit about the company you work for and everything like that. Uh-oh, are we frozen?
Oh, I lost internet, but now I'm back. So can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. What was your question?
I got excited after your introduction, but can you talk briefly just a little bit about the company you work for and what you do now?
Yeah. So I work for an ad tech company. So we do advertising on blogging sites. That's like the easiest way to just clarify what the company does. And my job is the publisher technical support specialist. So we have probably like 3,600 publishers that use our advertising on their blogging sites. And it can be like a WordPress site or a Squarespace site or like a hand coded site, whatever. And my job is to do the adjustments for the ad layouts on their pages and to do debugging. So I mainly work with HTML and CSS and JavaScript and a lot of Chrome dev tools and kind of like the web performance and a lot of like the Google Core Web Vitals and all of that other stuff that I had no idea when I got started, but it's great.
Awesome. And I know like before our meeting today, we've both of us, or all three of us at different times, all had a little conversation where we kind of talked about your timeline with Skill Crush and everything like that. And that's a question that I see here from Caitlin, is like about your timeline with your Skill Crush journey, like when you started, when you finished, your job search, stuff like that. So I'd love to have like a little insight into that.
Yes. So I started in August of 2020 is when I like first signed up for Skill Crush, and I signed up for the break into tech. So you had like the design track and the tech track. And when I first got started, I didn't know what the difference was. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just kind of started and so I actually went through the whole design fast track before I even went through the tech track. So I did all of the color theory and whatnot, and it was very helpful. But kind of doing both tracks, I learned I would much rather do the coding side than the design side. So that's when I kind of put all of my focus there. But I would say I started in August, and I think by about May of 2021, I felt ready to start applying for jobs. And And then I actually got hired at my job in June of 2021. So I've been doing that job ever since.
Oh, cool. I like that you actually took both the design and the kind of the front end to help you make that informed decision there.
Yes, and it is pretty helpful because learning things like colors and learning like accessibility for whether it's accessibility and like colorblind like color images or like the alt text, that is like been helpful to know just so you have a better understanding. But yeah, I definitely, if you have the time and you're really unsure, take both. That's my suggestion.
Honestly, so when we got started, I was just super excited to introduce you all. I didn't even mention like, so I obviously work for Skill Crush. I'm an enrollment counselor, but I'm also a student myself, for everyone else. Yeah, so like me, I've been following the front end development track, but I've really been like eyeing the design track. Like maybe that's what I want. So honestly, you're kind of inspiring me to just take the leap because I have access to both. So why not,
Exactly.
Cool. Okay. I guess I'm going to jump over to Jasmine and kind of follow up with that same question. Like, what was your journey with Skill Crush? Like, when did you sign up, go through the get hired track, all of that?
Yeah, I had to get my dates down. So, because I felt like I have no idea what year I am in. So, okay. So I started Skill Crush, I want to say back in July of 2021. And I feel like I started the get hired track probably, was it October? I think it was October because I know I got hired with my job in February of this year. So I know I did start the get hired job track in November because it was during the holiday season and Thanksgiving and family. And I'm trying to do a code test and my family's like, what are you doing? I'm like, code test. Please leave me alone. So it was during that time, I have to say, yeah. And I agree, Olivia, just go ahead and just do the design track. I'm poking into the design track right now and I just keep thinking about development. So I'm trying to be a designer, but yeah, it's fun.
I think there's beauty in both tracks, honestly. There's something to offer for both for sure. So, I guess what was the thing that drove you to Skill Crush? And then like once you got in, like what was the whole experience of Skill Crush like for you?
I love the community. I love to talk to people. I love to be really interactive with everyone. I love the town halls that Skill Crush provided, the Q&As. So shout out to Ann and Lisa. I love you guys. Like you guys really helped me a lot during this time I'm going through Skill Crush. So I really love that. I also love the whole pace that's kind of like self-paced, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can kind of do this. And if I still don't understand, I can always like ask questions. So that's one thing I do love about the Skill Crush. And plus I just love how you guys are just like super energetic and like happy. Like tech doesn't have to be a dying death. It could be fun. So I really enjoy that.
That's fair. I love the types of descriptions of like the preconceived notions of what people had of tech before, and then like how Skill Crush definitely just changed that for them. I love hearing the background of it. So can you so you talked about like you really love the self-paced part of Skill Crush. Have you tried like basically how was the self-paced online course? How was that different compared to like any other different education methods you had tried in the past?
Yeah, so before, like I was telling you, I had signed up for a veteran pilot program, and it was kind of like we had to hit like courses every 2 days. So it was like, okay, we're going to learn about arrays and we're going to, test you on arrays like tomorrow. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What is this? So it was like really fast paced. But with Skill Crush, it's kind of like, okay, if I don't understand this, let me go ahead and rewind the video. Let me go ahead and take some, a lot of notes. I like to ask a lot of questions, but it was just kind of like compared to the old, the previous one, yeah, skill crush is a lot better.
Good. That's great. Were there any things that you did? Like, so I know like one big thing with Skill Crush is like, just the encouragement to for students to like continue with their passions and develop their skills and keep growing essentially as you go on. Was there anything that you did maybe within Skill Crush, outside of Skill Crush, a challenge of some sort to kind of like really help you zone in and maybe like develop your interest, improve your interest, develop skills more, or anything like that on top of a break into tech?
I have to say during Skill Crush, that's when I started learning more about hackathons to get outside to learn more about my skills. But other than that, probably, I think Skill Crush was kind of like I always like to consider Skill Crush like my high school graduate, course that you have to take before you graduate to like the big stuff of learning more and more about tech. But I feel like, it kind of gave me a real good baseline. I hope I answered that question because I was like, okay.
No, that's perfect. Honestly, that's perfect. Yeah, I mean, I think, the whole point of the program is to help you launch and transition. And so the fact that's perfect. That's exactly what you used it for. And I guess while we're still asking you questions, Kacey, I promise I'll come to you.
Go ahead, please.
Was there anything that was particularly challenging, like getting through the skills portion or anything like that you were just like, oh gosh, I need to take a minute?
Oh, yes. Besides JavaScript. But no, I think it had to be I'm not trying to be ageist, but I just turned 40. So when I first started Skill Crush, I was like in my late 30s, and I was like, here I am. I'm a little bit older compared to all these young folks who are out here doing this tech, and they have like a leg up, and here I am trying to like do a whole new different career. So I was kind of like self-doubting myself because of my age. And I know you shouldn't like do that, but I really was doing that. But I think that was the kind of challenge that I had. Besides learning the skills, it was more like, oh, can my brain really grasp this? So that was kind of like the issue I had.
I will say that I feel like your brain, or my brain, anyone's brain, internally, like your internal objections you have, that can be the biggest hurdle and challenge, period. That's one of mine for sure. But it's I've actually been talking to Ada a lot like recently about like ageism and how we can help speak to that more, because it is something that we do have the point in our lives, or it happens. And it's one of those things that it just happens. And we all get older, and we all sometimes want to change our paths, and that's okay. But it's like, how to have those conversations, because it's not something you can just fluff up and just be like, oh no, you can do it. Because I mean, there are legitimate fears and legitimate things behind it. So that's pretty cool that you brought that up, because like, again, like that's something that Ada and I have been talking about, and we actually talked about it today in our all team meeting about like different things that we're trying to do to help with focusing around that. So that's really cool. All right, Kacey, I'm going to jump over to you. And so I'm going to kind of very similar questions that I just asked Jasmine, but what was your Skill Crush journey like for you?
Yeah, so let me think. I think in the first like introduction, like, woohoo, you just, got the break into tech. This is what you should do. There was like a suggestion somewhere that was like, you should try and do 10 hours a week of learning. And I was like, gotcha. And I would go into my calendar and block off like my Skill Crush time and try to get like 10 hours, if not more. And like literally had like those learning times in my schedule. And I also kept, I think I had like Evernote or whatever, like up on the side. And I was like typing out like copious notes every time I would watch the videos. And I'd be like pausing the video to make sure I got the definition of things right. And I was color coding everything. And I really went like all in. But I think what I loved was the fact that it was self-paced, because I was working other jobs at the time that were more like freelance. So I'm like, okay, I have an hour here to learn, and then I have about 2 hours over here to learn, and then I have a big chunk on this day. So it was nice that I could like work it into my schedule. And at the time, in the like COVID pandemic, I was living with my parents. So they live kind of in the middle of nowhere. So I was looking at boot camps, but I couldn't go to an in-person boot camp anywhere. One, it was COVID and everything was locked down. But two, I like couldn't travel to some other city for it. And so the self-paced like really just fit what I needed at that time. And let me think. Any other parts of this question that I need to answer?
No, that's perfect. You did great. Honestly, I'm listening to like your study tricks and everything. I'm like, dang, that's smart. Okay. That's really cool. So yeah, and you had touched on too, like being self-paced was exactly what you needed for your life. Was that like, what was your experience navigating through the self-paced program with balancing life and everything else going on, or comparing that to other methods that you've used in the past?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would say like, one, blocking the time in my calendar really helped because it also like forced me to step away, because you can't do the entire JavaScript course in one day. You might physically complete it, but that doesn't mean it's actually stuck in your brain at all. And also, I think it was like the JavaScript course and then going into like React. I started the React course and was like, I don't understand. And so I went back and redid the JavaScript course like entirely again. I like just started from the beginning and did it. And it was the second time through that I was like, oh, okay, these things are starting to click. So having that freedom to like go back, and, you know, I've been in my job for a year now, but I still have access to all of those courses. And there's still some that I haven't even completed, like some of the bonus courses. I'm like, oh, I need to go back because, you know, I have access to them for forever. So those things definitely were reasons why I wanted to use Skill Crush, but then also like they just really helped me in my journey.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm also in my process of doing JavaScript for like a second time. Because I'm like, it's there, it's really cool, I like it, but it's just my brain's not wrapped around it yet. So
yes.
Yes. Okay, cool. So would you say there was anything like particularly challenging? I mean, obviously aside from JavaScript and React, that whenever you're going through like the skills portion that was particularly challenging to you?
I think for me, I realized I was reaching a point where I was like following the guided prompts, and it would say like, you know, type this, and I would type it and I'd be like, wow, it's working. Like I'm a master. And then it was like, okay, solve this. And I'm like, I don't know. So that's when I realized I'm like, oh, it is very easy to just like follow instructions, but you're not actually learning anything. And so I think what helped me is when we were doing like those like final projects where there wasn't a lot of guide, it was like just do this and you had to figure it out. Going into like the Slack channels for that course or that project and kind of seeing what other people, one, feeling reassured when other people were getting stuck in the same place as I was. And I was like, okay, it's not just me. But then also seeing like 5 different people might have 5 different ways that they got to a certain solution. And there are 5 valid ways. And so challenging myself to be like, okay, read through like the code that they wrote and read through what code like this person wrote and try to really understand like the logic of how they got here. Because I think that's the crazy thing about coding is like you could type hello world in a million different ways and it's still hello world. So I would say that was definitely a challenge that I had to catch myself. And honestly, I think I still do it today. And I'm still like, okay, don't just follow directions. Make sure you actually know what is going on here so that way you can solve your own problems. You
know, it's funny, you describing that and how you would go through solving that to me, I feel like the technical support that you were talking about in the role you're in, like that sounds like the perfect role to dive into after just with how your brain works with that. So that's really cool.
Yes.
Because you're right. There are so many ways to look at code and still get the same outcome, but having to troubleshoot and figure out the logic behind it for sure. Yes.
Exactly.
That's cool. Let's see. I have my notes. Oh, here's all my questions. They were on my other screen. Excuse me. I was like, I have questions. Let's see. One of the questions that was asked, and it was specifically for you, Kacey, is because they're in acting as well, and basically they're asking like, do you ever have a desire to go back to acting? Have you tried to do both, or how's that been for you?
I specifically have not tried to do both. I do know of some people who do both. I saw something on Instagram, and it turned out they were a friend of a friend who's like in the ensemble of Wicked on Broadway by night and a software engineer by day. I was like, wow, okay, I want to meet this person. But for me, I think I was also on the tail end of my like acting journey. I was kind of reaching the point where theater was no longer fun for me. So for me, I have been able to go back to theater being an enjoyable hobby and something I still want to partake in, but not have the grind of constantly auditioning and constantly trying to book work. So it's a little more relaxing having a steady income, but it is definitely doable. Like as a remote job, like I could book a theater job and go somewhere as long as they have internet and I can still get my work done. I mean, you can do both. I think it's a lot of work, but you can make it fit if you need.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, remote work is awesome. I feel like it's one of those things once you kind of, dip your toes in and experience it, you're like, huh, this is what I've been missing. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, I see your question from Caitlin about like the interview process. So I guess it's the perfect time to kind of transition into get hired track questions, which I'm going to give you a little bit of break and jump on over to Jasmine and we'll kind of go from there. So with the get hired track for you, Jasmine, how was the program different from like your expectations going in, like, and describe kind of like how it worked for you and things like that?
I have to say it was really intense. I know we had to, I think, apply to 30 jobs per week or something. I don't remember. It was intense. I do remember that. So going into that, I was like, wow, oh, okay, let's do this, So it took me a moment to kind of get a rhythm down. But once I got the rhythm down of applying for jobs, practicing interviews, technical tests, coding, all that stuff, then it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. Cause like some interviews I experienced were crazy. I mean, I had one interview that I had to actually do like a video introduction of myself, which I was like, what? Okay. It was like a 2-minute, like to talk about myself on camera. I was like, wow, that's weird. I had to do a course coding challenges, like, redevelop this website or do this, or put this in React, JavaScript React, like kind of, doing different coding challenges. So it kind of varied, but it was really intense, but it worked out really well. I did love the weekly check-ins too, because I love trying to get like, what are the other students doing? Like, hey, what's some tips that you can, help me out with? And here are some tips that I can tell you about. So that was really good. Cause like I said, I'm all for community. So yeah.
I get that. So I guess this kind of builds on that question too. Now that you have a job in tech, how is it much different than what you thought it would be? Or kind of touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, so the job that I have now, I did not have to do a coding test. They looked at my portfolio and it was like, oh, okay, so you know the basics. I'm like, yeah, that's really, yes, please. That's what I've been trying to tell people for the longest. But I have to say, like, the HTML and CSS, I was like, oh, okay, so this is what I am, this is what I learned and this is what I'm doing. So I had to say it kind of went hand to hand. But, like the other ones, it's kind of like, okay, really, am I really going to be doing this? Or are you just doing this just to say this? Like, what is this? But I get it.
I get that.
Yeah.
So with all the jobs that you were applying for, I'm sure you probably got a little bit of rejection.
A little bit.
How did you cope with that? Like, just not feel like completely just like, oh gosh, I'm done. How did you do it?
I was like crying. No, I'm just joking. So I have to say I'm a little quirky. So it came to the point like, oh, so how many rejections am I going to get today? Like, it just like, I just switched it until I did have one job that declined. It was like, I don't think you're ready to be a developer. And I was like, ooh, let's see if you're right, So it kind of pissed me off a little bit. And then, like, my little army side came out like, I want to show you, you son of a gun, So I really didn't say son of a gun. I said another colorful word. So it was just kind of like, the rejections came a lot and I was prepared for that. And like the weekly check-ins kind of really told me like, hey, you're going to get rejected. Don't worry about it. So I think it kind of just got to the point like, oh, okay, well, this is not a rejection. Thank you, whatever. And it just kind of like just moved on. So yeah.
That's fair. I guess too, to build on that, to give advice to current students or people going through the same journey, like what advice would you give them as they're going through it to help them not get overly disheartened?
Yeah, so I have to say you have to give yourself some grace. I mean, these people who are, and maybe I'm coming back from like the HR point. So it's kind of like the behind the scenes of HR, because it's like, when we, as an HR person, hire you, we want to make sure that you're going to be here for quite some time, because it's a lot of money that goes into with this, particular position. So I have to say, give yourself some grace. It's not personal. If you can just think of like, it's not you, like it's not you, it's, it's me, it's not you, or whatever that term is. Yeah. But I also will say like, take a break too. Like I block off a lot of time. I like to do like blocks of 8. So I'll be like, okay, 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of personal time, and 8 hours of job hunting and rejections and all this madness, but it's just like when I do my personal time, I'll just get up, do hiking, or I'll do yoga, meditate, or something like that, just to get away from it. Because it's like, if you get consumed, in my opinion, then you'll start self-doubting yourself, and you're capable of doing a lot. Like these skills that you learn at Skill Crush is enough for you to get a job. So, but if you keep looking at the rejection, it's like, oh, I'm not good enough. And then it's like, but you are, you have a leg up. So yeah, that'll be my advice.
Honestly, that's good. You spoke to me on that one. But yeah, you definitely showed them. Yeah, not ready to do it. Well, look at where I am now. So
and colorful words, just like, okay, yeah, like that really, really got me. I'm like, oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So, and you kind of touched on this a little bit before, but like whenever you got your job now, or when they offered it to you and you're going through that, like you're like, yes, I have the skills. Thank you. But how could you tell that when that basically this job offer was like the right one for you?
Yeah, so this position I'm in, I work a hybrid schedule. So I really want it remote, like, because I felt like, laptop and you can go anywhere. But my friends made fun of me. It's like, you need to go outside. I'm like, fine. So I have this hybrid, but I only go to work once a week. So that really works out too. And plus the job that I'm located, it's only like 15 minutes away from my house. So it's not that bad either. And then like from the previous careers, it was always high, like fast pace, this job right here, I mean, it is something like, oh, obviously Texas, we have a drought going on, so we have to let the public know, like, yeah, we're not getting rain, sorry, but that is important. But it's not like, okay, well, life or death kind of thing, this and this and that. It's kind of like a chill, relax, like, wow, I can do this. Like, I can expand more, I can learn more. And then my job is also like, give me additional training. So it was kind of like, if you want to learn more about development, let us know and we'll pay for it. I'm like, oh, okay. So it works.
Really nice.
Yeah.
But going back to your comment about your friend saying you have to get out more, I used to make the joke that I'm a basement dweller. Like, I just sit in my basement, I feel like, a lot. But thankfully, my son and dogs encourage me to go outside. So
I just don't understand. I mean, now, granted, if I was back in California, sure. But, Texas is like 2,000 degrees outside. So it's kind of like, I feel like I'm Sarah Connors from the Terminator, like, burning every time I go outside. So it's like, no, there's no need for me. I can just stay with her. Thank you.
yeah, I get that. I get that because it's probably humid down there too, and humidity just like.
I mean, my hair didn't look like this earlier. Okay, it shrunk. Just saying, just putting that out there.
For sure. Well, awesome. I really appreciate your insight on all that. I'm going to jump over to Kacey. So I don't miss the humidity. I'm very happy I live in Colorado where it's very minimal. I do not miss the Georgia humidity either. So, woo. All right.
I know. We got it bad here too.
Just that whole southern portion there. All right. So with going through the Get Hired program for you, which I know whenever we talked, you were like, I was probably one of the first few you were one of the first few that went through the Get Hired program. But how was the program like different from like what you expected or how basically just describe how it worked for you?
Yeah. I like prior to starting the Get Hired like program, I think was like, I'm ready to start applying for jobs. So I went on to like LinkedIn jobs or, just started Googling like web developer jobs. And I got like instantly like overwhelmed and dejected because, those job descriptions have like, the entry level job requires 15 years experience and you've got to be proficient in all of these front and back end languages, even though it's only for a front end role. And there's like all of this stuff that was just super overwhelming. And I was like, well, I just wasted a year of my life because I'm clearly never going to get a job. And starting the Get Hired track really just helped me like hone my, my resume and my LinkedIn and just kind of get everything like pointing in the same direction. Like I am a web developer. This is what I do. And I would say like having a background in theater, I'm like, I have nothing to put on my resume. Like I sang on cruise ships and like babysat. Like how do you like this doesn't like get me hired into a tech job, but kind of working on how to like reframe those jobs to how they could apply in tech. And it's like being a problem solver or whatever, and kind of reframing the mindset to be like, no, like own what you've done prior. It's, I'm not ashamed or embarrassed by the career I had beforehand. I'm just now deciding to change to a new career. And that's totally fine. And that's good. So I will say that definitely helped me. And interviews, I like there was like the whole checklist, like before an interview, like, do your research, have questions laid out. And it gave a bunch of like sample like questions for when they ask, like, do you have any questions for us? Then there's like some sample ones. And that really helped me. And it helped me like not feel nervous going into an interview, or at least less nervous, because I felt like, okay, I have things. And of course, if you're doing a video interview, you just have your little like Google sheet right there next to you and you like talk. And now I am actually a manager and I conduct interviews to hire people. And I will say how few people come prepared to interviews. So if you are prepared and you do have like thoughtful questions or have like done your research on the company beforehand, like it really makes a difference. And it just really, it makes the like whole interaction just go smoother, because yes, they, companies want to hire someone who like knows the technology to some degree, but also is just going to be a good fit. Like, are you going to be a team player? Are you going to be willing to continue learning on the job? And are you going to, take action or whatever? And yeah, so getting those points across in an interview can really like encourage them to pick you.
That's fair. And I try, like, given I haven't gone through the get hired track yet, obviously, but whenever people ask, I'm like, no, like the thing is like you learn skills not only for this job search, but like every job search you have kind of going forward, like to know to ask questions and things like that. So that's really cool. I guess kind of piggybacking on that a little bit too. Was the process of applying for tech jobs different than like what you thought it would be and when you were going through it all, or do you feel like the get hired track kind of help set you up for success with that, or anyways? Yeah.
Yes, I think the get hired track like completely changes the way that you approach job searching. And if you're just going on like Indeed or LinkedIn jobs and you're just like blindly like hitting like submit application to 10,000 jobs, you're never going to hear back from them because you're just like in the sea of job applications. So the way that the get hired track like kind of reframes the whole process and kind of flips it on its head is scary, but it works. Like and it's all about connecting with people, and that's really, I guess just the human experience is connecting with people. So it's how you get hired in a job.
That's fair. So I'm going to ask you this question too, because you also had to go through the 30 jobs a week and everything like that. How did you cope with the rejection without getting like totally discouraged?
Well, as an actor, I was very used to rejection. My entire career and my entire life, I feel like, is just a wave of rejection. So I feel like it didn't affect me as much, but it definitely still was hard. But I think because you're applying to 30 jobs a week, what worked for me is like, you don't have time. You don't have time to be upset about them because you got 30 more jobs to apply to this week. And, you're just constantly like finding things, putting yourself out there, connecting with people. And it's hard to see the success and the progress that you're making when you're in the moment. But even if you're getting rejected week after week, you're still improving because you're honing your interview skills or your cover letter or how you connect with people, or really researching various companies so that way you're just like more knowledgeable in whatever tech industry that you're applying to jobs in. So even though you haven't actually gotten a job, you're still succeeding because you're still learning more every day. So I think that's what really helped me kind of push through all of the rejection.
I mean, that's a great way to look at it. Like, hey, like, sure, you're getting the notice, but you're still growing and improving with everything that you're going through. That's a great way to look at it for sure. I know I made the joke earlier about how I was talking about when you were going through your code and everything. I was like, wow, that sounds like the perfect thing for technical support. But how did you know whenever you got your job offer that it was the right job for you?
So for the company that I work for, I have like a friend of a friend who also works for this company. And so I had heard only positive things about just the company and the culture and the dynamic. So I already knew like, okay, I feel like this is going to be a like safe space to like kind of start. And I think what really helped me know that this job was definitely for me was I had to do like a like take home like test. But because my job is communicating with like publishers and with clients through email, the test was basically like, okay, pretend somebody wrote in and they had this problem. How would you reply back to them? like with the solution or whatever. And I really channeled like a Skill Crush voice, because I feel like the way Skill Crush, writes all of your emails or your like Slacks or blog posts, and how it's super like, hey, happy to help you. And I kind of just channeled that inner voice in my like responses. And I think that really like put me over the edge. And honestly, half of my job now, I feel like, is encouraging other people to also write with, oh, so sorry, happy to help. How's your day going? Anyway, let's get your problem solved. Like, and just trying to keep it cheerful and light. So, yes, that's it.
I love it. I love it. Let's see. I'm looking through the questions, and Erica had asked about if doing both the design and development tracks, and that's what you mentioned you had done. You'd done design and then went over to development, so that's pretty cool. And I guess before we kind of transition into signing off for today, what's a day in the life like for what you do in your job now?
A day in the life, I would say my job communicates mainly on Slack. So I was very grateful that Skill Crush also worked over Slack. So I felt comfortable with it. My job is definitely, I answer like responses. So my job is kind of logging in and checking off tickets and seeing what's come in. My job is also to kind of review some of what like the core code team has done. Because, anytime there is a deployment, there is going to be bugs and something is going to break. And my job is to find what's broken and figure out why it's broken, and then tell, either the QA team or the code team, like, hey, like, look at this. This is what's going on. So my job is pretty much responding to publishers, looking up recent releases in our code and what we offer. Usually Google's changing their requirements, every other day. So it's keeping up with what Google is recommending for web performance and SEO. And then my job is a lot of like documentation. I'm trying to take all of that information and figure out how to easily convey it to people on my team and also to like non-tech people. So a lot of my job is taking those complex tech things and trying to put them in everyday language.
And that is a beautiful art and skill, honestly. Being able to, like, I saw something earlier that's like the best way to learn something is to teach it. So if you're like being able to translate it into normal language, yes, that's definitely an art and skill. Gonna jump over to Jasmine. What's a day in the life like for you at your job?
Yeah, so my job consists of email. Basically, I receive email from internal employees and external employees also, and the public. So it's just basically like, hey, this page is not working. I'm like, okay, so I have to go inside the source code to see why it's not working. And sometimes it just be like a little typo, and you'd be amazed how that happens a lot. Also, I work with the graphics team. So if they have like a new page that needs to go up into the public website, I'll go ahead and code that up. And then I'll, hey, here you go, and stuff like that or whatever. So it just depends. But basically, if it's like really like an emergency, like I said, like the drought that's going on here in Texas, I'm like really on my computer, like, okay, what do I need to type, and stuff like that. So yeah, it just depends on the day.
So, I mean, with both of y'all, it sounds like you do a lot of debugging, which really makes me appreciate my debugging exercises that much more. And honestly, it's those darn semicolons and brackets and parentheses all the time.
Surprise. You'd be like, what?
Yep, there's a random comma. Okay. All the time. Really cool, really cool. All right, let's see. Who thought you were going for to fit the role? Let's see. I see a question from Erica. It says, did either of you end up changing the desired title you were going for to fit the role that you felt like ultimately was a better choice? So did you have to kind of shift a little bit of, I'm guessing this is what Erica means, like basically where you think you wanted to go, but did you have to shift that mindset a little bit to be like, actually, no, this is actually the better job for me?
I mean, my job still entails like development, but it's just a different title, I guess. But it's the same thing. And what I've noticed when I was doing my job search is the same thing, but they have like different titles. So it could just be
so many
front-end developer, web administrator, but it's still like, oh, do you have HTML, CSS, JavaScript? It's like, oh, okay, well, that's what this is. So, I guess it just depends.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, like this is definitely not fully development related, but earlier we were talking about how just, the job title will change, but realistically the description, it's all the same of what they're really asking for, but they will change the title or how that works to fit, I guess, their goals or what sounds really cool or whatever. That's fair. Let's see, what other questions do we have here? If you could give advice to skill crushers just in general, people that are students, thinking about being students, anything like that, what piece of advice would you give them about like making the jump or taking the leap?
I would say go ahead and rip off the Band-Aid and just go for it, because I'm just the type of person, like, I do not like regretting anything. So I don't want to be like, oh man, I shoulda, woulda, coulda kind of thing. So I just say, give it a try, at least do the 30-day coding, the free camp for people who are not students, at least do that and just, try it out. For the people who are currently students, give yourself some grace. It's going to be okay. Tech is not going anywhere, so, just give yourself some grace and try to at least learn the material. Don't be like myself. I can speak from experience. It's like, oh, I'm done with this module. Oh, I'm done with this module. And then I'm like, what are they talking about? I have no idea what's going on. So, just take your time, just like, focus at least an hour of code a day. That's what I would always recommend, because, everyone has their own different learning skill, you can't compare yourself to anybody else because we all learn different ways. So give yourself some grace, take your time, deep breaths, and have a hug.
Yes. Honestly, I'm getting so much value of being here. So I love it so much. Yeah. Okay. Well, awesome. I really do appreciate that. I guess too. Now I'm going to ask Kacey that. I'm very intrigued. Kacey, what advice would you give potential students, current students, anything like that? What advice would you give to anyone thinking about Skill Crush?
Okay. So if you are thinking about like breaking into tech or joining Skill Crush or whatever, I would say, it's not too late. I think I thought that it was too late for me. I thought I was 27 at the time. I was like, well, I'm too old. It's too late to change careers. I'm stuck being an actor because that's what I wanted to be since elementary school. And so it's not too late. And you can do it. And it's not... There's always something there. There's enough room for everyone. It's not an oversaturated job market. You can do it. And then if you're in the courses and you're taking and you're breaking into tech, I would say my advice for you would be, pretty similar. Just like be easy on yourself. You're not going to be an expert, but no one's an expert. And I think that was something that really held me back is I remember saying, like, I feel like the knowledge is here, but I'm only here. And the more I grow, there's new things coming out. And so I'm always behind, and it's just too late for me. I'm too far behind. And I realized, like, no, you're never going to know everything. You're never going to just be some savant in all things technology, especially because it changes every day. But the key is the willingness to keep learning. And that's the most important part. So, be easy on yourself. If you don't get it the first time, that's okay. Because I guarantee you, like, anybody else around you also didn't understand the first time. So that's just imposter syndrome, like whispering in your ears. So yeah, you got this.
I love it. No, and that's so true. Like, that goes back to another conversation I was having where it's like, you can't specialize in everything. Like you have to just take your steps and just continue to grow in knowledge. As I'll always say, I just like to be a sponge of things, like just soak it in. And sometimes I might have to try and soak a few times before it really sticks, but, but yeah, just be a sponge. So that's really cool. Well, I really do appreciate you taking the time, both of you, taking the time to join us today. We have a few more minutes, just a few. So I'm going to look over any questions that I see. Like I see a few in here, talking about like, if you needed to like get a degree, if you need to have a degree to work in tech. And, I can absolutely say, no.
No, I have like a college degree that's like not in tech, but you don't even need that. Like you can, just learn how to do it. I think that's the fun thing about it, is it's about what you know. Like you're like, here's my portfolio and here's my technical knowledge, and they say, great, you start tomorrow.
Yeah. And Emily kind of asked about like pay increase and things like that. And I'm not going to ask y'all to go into that information. But I can speak to like with like the numbers we see as Skill Crush for students, like on average, which the numbers actually just went up. I just got new numbers today. So give me like 2.5 seconds and I can give you our actual data. We have a 97% success rate with the Get Hired program. I'm super excited about that. And the average salary is about $76,000 for students after they go through the Get Hired track, which is about a $34,000 increase from where they were before tech. So I can speak to that. I mean, would you say, you don't have to give me numbers, I'm not going to ask that, but would you say definitely like that it did help you in that department in transitioning?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I remember when I was like first received this job offer that where I work now, it was like a loose offer. It was like, yes, we want to hire you, but they had yet to like give me an offer letter or a salary or whatever. And I remember thinking like, okay, if I only make this much, like, yes, I could survive off of that. And then they gave me the offer letter and it was like so much more. And I was like, oh my gosh, you want to hire that? I've never made that much in my life. So yes, that has definitely helped. I was like, oh, how am I going to negotiate to just get this level? And then they offered me like something way up here. And I was like, okay, thank you. I mean, I still did my negotiating skills that I learned from Skill Crush, but in the end, I was like, I'm just happy.
I get that. You're just like, I'm trying to play a little bit of hardball, but internally you're just like, yes. Oh. For sure. Well, that's really cool. I don't know if Jasmine, you have any follow-up there, but I'm pretty sure you probably have a very similar experience to a lot of students in that aspect. So that's really cool. Well, I really do appreciate that you two took the time to be here today to be with me and answer questions. I have definitely enjoyed this. And I definitely want to thank everyone else for taking the time to join us today and ask questions and be here and listen along as we've gone through. Let's see if there's any other questions. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, I guess I won't really keep you all that much longer, but I really do so much appreciate the time that you've taken to speak with me, and just for all the current and potentially future Skill Crush people out there. So yes, I really do appreciate both of you so much.
Can I have one more tip?
Yeah, go right ahead. I'm all ears.
Just have fun with it, with coding. Just the whole journey in general, just like have fun, because that really kind of motivated me too as well. I will say that would be like my last thing, like to have fun.
Honestly, I enjoy the class in and of itself. Like, I think I was talking to you about how I tried JavaScript before Skill Crush, and I was like, not for me. It was just someone like trying to write it out on a whiteboard, and I'm like, what? So it's really cool to go through the program and like see the exercises and everything happening for you come to life, which is really nice. But awesome. If there are any questions that came through the chat that I didn't answer, I'll definitely make sure that you get a follow-up email with answers. But I hope you, both of you and everyone else that's here today, have a wonderful rest of your day, afternoon, evening, wherever you may be. So, all right. Well, I really enjoyed our time together, ladies. And I was going to say I hope to talk to you soon. I guess I hope to talk to you soon sometime, but I hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.